and welcome to Storytime with the Asatru Academy. Today we'll hear what happens when a young boy opens the oven to peek as he's making gingerbread in Jan Brett's version of a classic folk tale. Gingerbread Baby by Jan Brett. It was cold outside. It was warm inside. A fine day for gingerbread, Matti thought. Matti's mother put the big blue bowl on the table and lit the stove. Matti took down a worn-looking cookbook with old-fashioned writing on the cover. He opened it up to the page that said, Gingerbread Boy. There's Matti's mother putting wood on the stove, and Matti's taking down an old cookbook off the shelf. They measured and mixed. Matti rolled the dough into the shape of a gingerbread boy, and they popped him in the oven. Bake a full 8 minutes. No more, no less. Do not peek, the recipe read. Matti listened to the clock. Tick, tock, tick. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3, 4, 5. Matti couldn't wait any longer. He opened the oven door to take a peek. Instead of a gingerbread boy, out jumped a gingerbread baby. He pranced around the big blue bowl. I am the gingerbread baby, fresh from the pan. If you want me, catch me if you can. Look how surprised Matti and his mother are when a gingerbread baby hops right out of the oven and dances around the bowl. Matti's mother reached for the gingerbread baby to put him back into the oven, but he ran all around the kitchen. The door opened, and in came Matti's father. What's that delicious smell? He asked as the gingerbread baby tumbled through his legs and outside into the yard. There's Matti and his mother trying to catch that gingerbread baby. She's trying to get him in the frying pan as he slips through Matti's father's legs out into the snow. He ran by the tabby cat. She twitched her tail and sprang at him. They rumbled and tumbled, but the gingerbread baby came out on top. He ran toward the garden wall. The dog caught a whiff of tasty ginger and sniffed along behind him. But the gingerbread baby was halfway up when the dog caught up. He barked and barked as the gingerbread baby climbed over the wall. Look at that, the gingerbread baby is riding on top of the cat. And there he escapes over the fence with everybody running after him. Matti was still inside. He heard his mother and father yelling. He heard a cat meowing and a dog barking. And he heard the gingerbread baby shouting, "Catch me if you can!" Matti opened up the worn-looking cookbook for the second time. Meanwhile, the gingerbread baby wheeled on down the path and into the barn. The goats looked up as he somersaulted across their backs. The last one tried to catch him, but the gingerbread baby was too fast. Those goats sure are surprised to see a live gingerbread baby running around in the barn. And what is Matti up to? He's looking for another recipe. Martha and Madeline were standing by the well when the gingerbread baby stopped to take a drink. They looked at each other and winked. Martha started to talk to him, while Madeline tiptoed up behind him with the bucket. But they couldn't fool that gingerbread baby. Here are these girls trying to trick the gingerbread baby. but he's too clever. He took a braid from Martha and a braid from Madeline and tied them in a knot and ran down the road. Back in the house, Matti stirred, mixed, and rolled the dough. He shaped it, put it in a pan, and into the oven. Tick, tock, tick. 8 long minutes. This time he didn't peek. I will catch him if I can, Matti said to himself. There are those poor girls with their braids tied together. And there's Matti, hard at work in the kitchen. As he was bouncing along, the gingerbread baby saw a farm wagon just ahead. He jumped in and settled down for the ride next to a mama pig. The smell of gingerbread was too much for her. She tossed him high in the air, closed her eyes, and opened her mouth. But the gingerbread baby twisted in the air and came down hard on her porky snout. I am the gingerbread baby, too quick for the mother and the father, too fast for the cat, the dog, the goats, too clever for Martha and Madeline, too smart for the mama pig. Who's left? Catch me if you can. There's the gingerbread baby dancing along. And there's that farm wagon, that poor mama pig. She was expecting a delicious treat, and instead she got a hard kick in her nose. Feeling smug, the gingerbread baby strolled along by himself until he came to a bridge that crossed over to the village. Just as he got to the middle, he heard running feet behind him and saw a crowd of villagers ahead of him. The gingerbread baby was trapped. He jumped up onto the railing, backflipped through the air, and landed on a chunk of ice floating down the river. That was a close call. But that gingerbread baby, he escaped. There he is, jumping down into the river. The ice bobbed along with the gingerbread baby dancing on top and singing in a loud voice. Look at me, and what do you see? The best gingerbread baby ever! Until his feet got cold and he jumped ashore. Who was that watching from the trees? It was the fox. He crept up behind the gingerbread baby, ready to eat him up. But the fox couldn't help himself, and he licked his chops. Smack, smack. The gingerbread baby heard him and ran as fast as he could. What do you think? Has the gingerbread baby finally met his match? Is the fox going to catch up with him? Just when the fox was catching up, the gingerbread baby saw the milk and cheese man with his can of milk. The perfect hiding place, he thought. He lifted the lid and lowered himself inside. He was so pleased that he sang at the top of his gingerbread voice, ha ha, hee hee, you'll never find me. I'm the gingerbread baby. Catch me if you can. The milk and cheese man heard the gingerbread baby's voice. Who is meddling with my milk? He shouted and lifted the lid. But the gingerbread baby was ready. He jumped up and tweaked his nose. That rascally gingerbread baby. He outwitted the fox. And there he is, tweaking the poor milkman's nose. Now the milk and cheese man, the fox, the villagers, the mama pig, Martha and Madeline, the bleating goats, the barking dog, the meowing cat, The father and the mother were all after the gingerbread baby and getting closer, and he knew it. The brash baby was not as peppy and proud as he had been. He sniffed a familiar smell and followed his nose into the woods. That gingerbread baby has got quite a crowd following after him. But where is the fox? Here's all the villagers and the farm animals. But the sneaky fox, it might be hard for you to see, but he's there in the trees following along in the woods. He couldn't believe what he saw. There in the middle of a clearing was a gingerbread house, frosted with sugar, covered with candy, and doors with peppermint handles wide open. The gingerbread baby clapped his hands with glee and ran inside. Look what a beautiful gingerbread house is there waiting in the snow for the gingerbread baby. And there on the side, we've got all the villagers and animals following after, wanting to eat him up. And who is peeking out from behind a tree? In a tick, tock, tick, everyone arrived in the clearing, but all they found were a few bits of frosting, a peppermint candy, and some crumbs. The father exclaimed, "The gingerbread baby has finally met his match." "I wonder who it was," the mother said. "Let's go home and tell Matti." There's the crowd of villagers and animals looking at the crumbs that are left on the snow. And there's the fox watching from behind a tree. And there's Matti walking through the forest. And he's carrying something. "Hello, Matti," his father said when they got home. "We never did catch that gingerbread baby. All we found were some crumbs in the snow." "I see you have been busy," his mother said, looking at the gingerbread house Matti was holding. "Too bad we never caught that gingerbread baby." "Too bad," said Matti. They're Matti's parents coming home with the cat and the dog, and they find Matti there with the beautiful gingerbread house he's made. And where do you think that gingerbread baby is? Only Matti could hear the tiny voice from inside the gingerbread house. "I'm the little gingerbread baby, lucky as can be to be living in the house that Matti made for me." I hope you all enjoyed that story. It sure did make me want to go and whip up a batch of gingerbread. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.